Welcome to Good Horses, stories of the American quarter horse. Behind every great rider, breeder, or trainer, there's always a good horse. The ones that challenged us, taught us, and left a lasting mark. In each episode, we'll share the stories of those horses, the ones that shaped lives, built legacies, and defined the heart, soul, and horsepower of the American quarter horse. This podcast is brought to you by the American Quarter Horse Association. Let's get started.
Welcome to Good Horses, Stories of the American Quarter Horse. I'm Becky Newell, and on the other side of the camera is our producer, Michelle Bonds. And I'm here today, lucky to be here today with Al Dunning, AQHA professional horseman, and a new Team Wrangler member, a legend. Al writes a column for us in the Journal, has since about 2016-ish, and he basically introduces us to all the legendary horsemen from when he was growing up and getting into his own career. So, Al, tell me how you got started in horses.
My sisters were involved with horses a lot more than me, so I just sort of played on the haystack. And then it evolved. I got around some great guys in those days, and my dad never lived with us. So being around those kind of cowboys, I really wanted to, find out what made them who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys like Chuck Shepard and Dean Oliver and Dale Smith and all that, they roped at this place I was at, and I'd turn the steers out for them and things like that, and the calves. And I got to know, some of the best ever, so that was a big part of my beginning. And then, I started riding my sister's horses when they got boyfriends. So, yeah. And then one thing led to another. And then I ran into a guy named Jim Paul, mm-hmm. and, he's the father of Randy Paul and Jimmy Paul. And he was kind of my father figure. He taught me how to train horses and how to, work real hard. And he worked really hard. And I always said he treated me like a test dummy. So I did a lot of things like that. So it was good. It was a good growing up. But then as I evolved in the horses, I stayed with Jim for a long time. And then I went to work for John Hoyt. Mm-hmm. John Hoyt's a legend, as you know, in our business. Sir. And I was with John for a long time. And then John moved to Texas. And when he did, Don Dodge moved in with me. And Don Dodge is like in 5 Hall of Fames.
Yes.
And about that time, I decided I wanted to cut. Mm-hmm. So that's why Don was there. He taught me how to cut. And there, end of the story.
Wow. So talk about the first horse that you had that really hooked you.
My mom was really good to us kids. And so we had a horse. She bought me a little horse named Barney's Queen. Mm-hmm. And Barney was a little bronc, and I got to break her and do the whole thing and showed her in the pleasure. And I was just a geeky little kid, mm-hmm. So it was kind of an experience. And I wanted to do more. And Jim Paul put me on a horse named Big Ben. A big unregistered gelding. And he said, run him down and stop, pull. And I said, okay, well, that's all I got to do. So I ran real fast and pulled, and he slid. I thought, wow. This is that felt good. That's something I want to do. Mm-hmm. So from then, I started doing more of the all-around stuff. Mm-hmm. So, I showed mainly in the horsemanship. Jim made me show in the showmanship. I always wondered why. He said, they make you take science and all that in school. This is just part of it. You got to do it all. It's part of it. So I showed I showed some jumpers, and I showed barrel racing. I roped, and I did the cow horse and the reining and the pleasure, and you name it. Every time the gate opened, I showed, and that was probably a neat deal. But as I went on, I ended up having a great mare named Morris Crystal, mm-hmm. and Morris Crystal, we bought her from Adrian Berryhill, who that's where Shorty Freeman mm-hmm. was, and she was a great mare. I mean, she would go grand champion at halter.
Oh my gosh.
And then I could win just pretty much everything I tried to win.
One of those all-around horses. Yeah. Wow.
And then an unfortunate thing happened to Morris. She hurt her hamstring up under her hind leg. Mm-hmm. And so this little blonde girl named Becky, you know who that is.
I know who that is.
Becky Lastly was riding a great mare named Sherazan, and she ended up beating me for the all-around that year, and that was 1968, I think, was my last year in the youth.
Wow.
And so I married her, so I get to ride Sherazan. So Sherazan was a great mare, and she had 750 points back in the day when she was a great pleasure horse. But we roped on her, and we did the trail and did the Western riding, and you name it, we did it with her. I won several versatilities on it where you'd have to do, in those days, the versatility was Western pleasure, English, like on the flat, reining and barrel racing, those 4 events. And she'd win them all,
That's amazing.
English was a little tough because she wasn't very big, but I put a little breed rider on her. She was good. So then I became a professional in 1970, married Becky in 71. And that's the start of a pretty neat career for me. I ended up having some great horses after that.
Yeah. So I watched a video about you're telling the story about the pink pony. Is that what you called her?
Yeah, Pink Pony.
Man, I was in tears by the end of that story. So
she was something special, So Pink Pony was the horse that kind of set me off as a professional. So I was showing halter horses, and I had some really good ones, and I was showing reiners, and Pink Pony was my best of the group, and I owned her myself, which was really
that
cool.
makes it even better, doesn't it?
Yeah, and she was a Palomino, but she had real pink skin underneath, and when you washed her down, she looked pink. So her real registered name was Stormy Pink. But in those days, we showed at a lot of American Horse Show Association shows and open shows, the biggest shows in those days.
Oh, yeah.
By far, and you could name your horse what you wanted. So the guy that had her before me was George Texera, and he named her Pink Pony.
That's cool.
So, and she was phenomenal. I mean, I didn't have to warm her up. I'd trot her around in front of those guys, and I'd comb her tail out. And she had a really big long, and she'd run with her tail sticking straight out. When she stopped, she'd clamp that tail between her hind legs and just slide. She was really something. And the end of the story is, that I bred her after her great career, which I won several all-rounds on her and stuff, we bred her to Docalina, and she colicked and died. And I just happened to have her bit with me. I was in Santa Barbara, California, and I was showing Expensive Hobby.
Yep.
I took that bit out, and I put it on him, and I told him the story about her. I said, hey, tonight's for her.
Carry it on.
And I marked like a 89 or something.
Oh my gosh.
Like, as big, or 79. I mean, about as big as you could. Won the Santa Barbara National and the open stock horse on him.
What a way to honor her.
Yeah, it was to me.
Yeah.
So I laid down and I cried for a long time after she died. And I'm not a crier, okay? So but,
she was special.
She was special. She was one of those horses where you turn her in the arena and she's running and she runs with her tail straight out. And then I'd have this whistle. I'd whistle to her. And she would run up, and then she'd slide up and touch me, right? And I had to stand there thinking, oh, my God.
She's going to run me over.
She just ended up touching me right here on the chest with her nose, and she was special to me.
That is cool. Really cool.
In your careers, if you can have a few of those special horses that just touch your heart like that, it's a big deal. And I've had a few.
Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't happen to a lot of people.
No.
And one other I can think of is Carol Rose. Yeah. She's had some multiple amazing horses. So yeah, to see that happen to somebody else, that just gives me goosebumps. That's really cool. Really cool. So when Pink Pony died, she had a baby on the ground.
Yes, she did. Oh, you've done research, okay? Yeah, so she had a baby. Gary Kennel had given me a breeding to Boone Bar. We were good friends, and Boone Bar. So we bred Pony, and before I took her over there to Shorty's, she had a little baby and little baby, and anyway, after she passed away, he didn't have a mama anymore, so we had to bring him home and bottle feed him.
Oh boy!
And I asked Becky, I said, what are we going to name him? Because he's not very good looking. And so she goes, well, it's going to have to be something about feeding him. She goes, I got it. More oats, please. So we named him More Oats, Please. And right here was one of his big times he ever had.
No kidding.
I marked a 224 on him and won the senior cutting here several years ago. And Becky was hiding in the bathroom, which, she never.
She couldn't watch.
She watched me ride in Denver on Expensive Hobby one time, and I had it won I'd won the go round,
Mhm.
and it carried over to the finals.
Mhm.
So I was 11 points in the lead,
Wow.
and everybody was there. Bob Loomis was there,
Oh my goodness.
and Mel Lawson was there, and Bob Anthony was there, and Bill Horn was there. I mean, all of them. I
All
was
the
that
big
far
guys.
ahead
Yeah.
smoking them.
Of them.
John Hoyt came over and told me how proud he was of me, and I thought I'd just lope through and just kind of finish it off and win.
Mhm.
And after he said how proud he was of me, John never cried. He had a little tear in his eye.
Oh.
Because out west, I'd beaten all those big shot Easterners,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
So I thought, I'm going to go for it.
Yep.
Instead of turning 4 turns, I turned 5 turns.
Oh no.
So, some of those kind of things happen along the way too, but
yeah.
it doesn't deter me. So
Yeah.
anyway.
It's part of the story.
But Becky was watching. That's the key to it.
That's what
And after that, she never
she
watched
would never
me
watch
again.
again.
She
Yep.
goes and hides.
Yep.
So
I hear that from a lot of parents as well when they're watching their kids at Youth World. They're like, I have to go somewhere completely away because I can't watch them.
Mackenzie, my daughter, won the world last year here in the
yes,
cutting.
she did.
And in the amateur cutting. And I have to watch because I have to help. I have to pick her cows. I trained her horse. And everybody says, you go so crazy when she shows you look so nervous. I said, well, I want my baby to do good. It's one of those deals where you just, I just love her so much and I want her to do good. And that's how it goes. So
that was a good show last year because her husband also won, right?
Yeah, he did. He won the cow horse,
Yes.
Shad Parkinson.
Yes.
Yeah.
On Tornado Watch.
Tornado Watch. And we had a tornado watch during that show.
We had multiple tornado warnings that week. And so we all had to get our picture made with that horse.
It was perfect. It was really good. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It was a lot of fun.
Okay. So Ricky Bonanza is somebody you mentioned to me on our way over here to the room that you had. Tell me a little bit about that horse.
Well, I was just starting my career in 1970. My father, my prospective father-in-law in those days, George Lastly, came to me and he said, I think it'd be good if you had a stud. And, he knew that me and Becky were pretty close at that time. So he said, what about the Dunnings and the Lastleys buying a stud? And I go, well, we'll see. So we researched around and Bill Edmondson was showing a stud named Ricky Bonanza by Coy's Bonanza. And, he was a pretty neat horse. So we flew back to Ohio and looked at him and decided we'd buy him. And we let Bill Edmondson show him the rest of the year. And he won the year-end the honor roll in those days. The honor roll. Or now it'd be the High Point, right?
You bet.
So, and I think he had the record still maybe for number of grand championships in one year. So we brought him back to Arizona and I stood him at stud here in 1970. Here I'm 20 years old. And I had Pink Pony. I was showing her in the reining and I had a couple other horses I was showing and I spent the rest of
You were loaded.
I bred 52 mares to him the first year, hand cover.
Wow.
So, and I had to tease all those mares myself and everything.
Goodness.
Yeah. And that's why I learned not to wear a wedding ring because one of those stupid brood mares, I'd let her up there and she had squealed and kicked at the teaser and run and my ring hung under the edge of her halter.
Oh, no.
And so she drugged me around. I thought, I'm going to lose my finger.
Yeah.
So I took it off. Now they make those little rubber rings.
Ones.
I just never got one. So Becky has a ring in my nose. I don't have to have it on my finger. So there you go.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So, but anyway, Ricky went on and we had him for several years. And then famous guy named Jerry Vaughter helped me sell him to Clarence Chown at Rawhide Ranch.
Yes.
And so he went over there and stood at stud after that. So Ricky was a neat horse.
Did you have any babies by him that you then went on and did well with?
Well, I got a great story about, I always have a story about 100 of them. But so the first really good one, I had a mare that I had inherited through marrying Becky named Joe Shirley.
Okay.
Joe Shirley was a great halter mare. I mean, beautiful mare. I have some stories about her too that are pretty cool. So, but anyway, she had her first foal was by Ricky Bonanza, and she was so beautiful. I named her Becky Bonanza after Becky. I could have named her after you. See,
you were in love.
I was in love. Yeah. So. Anyway, she was so pretty. And one day, a big car drives into the ranch there, and it's Kenny Rogers and the first edition in those days. Yeah, the singer.
No.
So, and somebody had told him about that filly, and so he looked at her, and it was kind of cool that I was like starstruck. First of all, here I am, a kid, and so he didn't buy her, but he looked at her and looked at a couple other horses I had. And the next day, I got a call from Greg Whalen on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow or another, somebody had seen me because I'd never shown her yet.
Wow.
But I had her fit good.
Yeah.
And Greg Whalen called me up and said how much you want for her and bought her over the telephone.
Wow.
So I asked him, can I show her at the Prescott Halter Fraternity, which was a big deal in those days. I mean, there were like 50 in it.
Wow.
Weanling Halter Fraternity.
That's a lot.
And anyway, Martin Clark was judging, past president AQHA.
Yep.
And I knew Martin, but we weren't really close like we became later. He judged, and I mean, they got them all lined up there, and he walking up and down. I think, come on, baby, come on. And Greg had already owned her and stuff like that. And I was hoping for Greg that she did good. And he points at me and pulls me out of the line. So I'm standing there in line, and I know you're not supposed to do this. I wouldn't tell this story except for, he's not with us anymore.
Now.
So, but he goes up to me and goes, nice filly. She for sale? And I said, I just sold
She
her.
was.
He goes, California? I go, yeah. He goes, bastard. Like that. So he knew because
somebody beat
Greg
him
was
to
always hunting the good ones and stuff. Well, anyway, Debbie Cale ended up being world champion with that mare, and then later Marilyn Mowry bought her, and they showed her. They showed her in the reining and everything.
Oh my goodness!
And then she got hurt and passed away too. So but that was a great mare. But she's an easy one to remember. I had a reiner I trained named Pony Bonanza. It was out of Pink Pony. By Ricky Bonanza.
Oh my gosh!
And I had a few others too. So that was pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Boomer Nick. That's another horse you mentioned to me on our way in this afternoon. Talk to me about that.
That was an amazing animal,
Yeah.
So Brett Stone had rode with me as a youth and had won the youth world with me on a horse named Doc Cheshire Cat way back when in the reining. And Brett became a professional trainer, and he went and had a customer, and they went and bought Boomer Nick. And so before he showed him at the reining fraternity, he was having a little difficulty with him. So he called me up and said, would you help me with the horse? And I said, yeah, bring him over. So he left him with me for a few weeks, and I rode him. And when I got done, I said, well, you ready to come pick him up? He goes, yeah. And I said, he came, picked him up. I said, you better watch out. I think you're going to win the reining fraternity on him. And he said, don't say that,
Don't jinx me.
So anyway, we talked about how to handle it because he was a lot of horse, and he showed him in the go around, and I think he was right up there in the go around. And I told him after that go here, you take him to Frank Merrill at Windward Stud. You just turn him out. You don't mess with that horse for a few days. All these other guys are going to be going through. Well, anyway, he ends up winning the reining fraternity on Boomer Nick, and so I felt that was really cool. Right after that, for some reason, he came up for sale, or we knew he could be bought. So a couple of us got together, including Frank, and we bought him. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, and stood him at stud for a while, and he was just, one of the many. And there were I had some great colts by him too, as you know.
Yeah,
so then, right while I was at Frank's one day, again, Frank Merrill, he's a problem to me anyway. So
whenever you're together, I'll text you and say, boys, call me if you need bail money.
I love harassing him. I just can't help myself.
It's easy.
Well, so many people just respect him so much,
yes.
and I do too. I just don't ever let him know it,
We love him.
But I do harass the heck out of him. So his cousin Peter Finney was there. And Peter had owned some great horses, as you know, two that had won the reining fraternity, and he had a little Palomino baby, and he asked me. He said, "Al, I'd like to do a deal with you on this filly, on this stud." And I said, well, and he had a real cut up leg. And I said, Peter, I'll do it, but he's got a bad leg. I don't know it's going to be a late start. And it was a yearling, by the way.
Right.
So anyway, I love Peter. So I said, yes, I took him home, healed that leg up, and didn't get to start him too early, but then got him going and trained him up. And that was Yellow Jersey.
No.
And Yellow Jersey was just a really, really great stud, and So I trained him up. I had to go to the cutting fraternity, and so I got my friend Brent Wright to show him.
Mhm.
And Brent Wright made the finals here at the reining fraternity, and then Arturo Chasey bought him
Oh, yes.
there, and he went to Europe and won over there, and then he came back here and won over here, and then I see all kinds of great colts by him running
Yes.
around. So
Yes.
that's another stud that I got to be a part of.
Did Casey Deary show him at all? No.
I don't think Casey did.
Okay.
Andrea did,
Andrea. Okay.
and Randy Paul did,
Mhm.
and I don't know, a couple others. I think. I mean, he was, Mandy McCutcheon.
Oh.
I think she won the gold on him or
Mhm.
something like that. So
Yeah.
he's a special horse. And
Yeah.
then Tim ended up owning him.
Mhm.
So there you
That's
go.
cool.
Yeah,
Very cool.
kind of another great story.
Yes, absolutely. Where did you go from there, horse-wise? Yeah,
I don't know.
which one do we pick next?
I'm always into some kind of horses. I was a guy that I came to the ranch, took a cutting lesson from me, ended up buying a ranch in Wyoming named in Jackson Hole called, and I even named it for him, called Jackson Land and Cattle.
Oh, yeah.
And he wanted to be put on the map.
Mm.
And I said, Mr. Fields, the only way you're going to get put on the map is own a stud.
Mhm.
Because you can have all the mares in the world and people won't even know your name, but you own a stud, that's a different deal. So anyway, he said, go for it. So I searched around and found out I could buy Pepto Boonsmall for him. So
Holy cow.
yeah,
That's on the map.
he paid a record price for Pepto, and first year we bred 100, and if I remember, 164 mares at 15,000 a piece.
Oh my goodness.
So it didn't take long to pay that horse off,
No.
but I had it all. I see horses selling today for
Mhm.
amazing prices, but they don't pencil out.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, they leave the business
Mhm.
because they go, wait a
They
second.
couldn't make the money.
Yeah, and I could pencil him out at that price.
Mm.
And because we knew how many mares we could breed at what price and that kind of stuff. So
Man.
Yeah.
How old was that horse when he bought him?
12.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and
He still had some time left then.
yeah, he did.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And then, Aaron Ranch bought him,
Yep.
and he went on from there.
Yeah. That is cool.
Yeah.
Very
So
cool.
those are the studs that I had a little something to do with. And I've had a lot to do with some other studs so one of them you might remember was named Stickle Fritz Checks.
Yes.
Stickle Fritz Checks was by King Fritz. The Dietz, Ronnie Richards started him.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Dietzes from Arizona bought him. And I trained him up and showed him here at the World Show and did really good on him. I think I was second in the cow horse behind the Expensive Hobby. I think
Oh
I was
my
first and
gosh.
second that year. And anyway, I showed him, made him a superior reining horse and a superior cow horse. And Alex Ross bought him.
Oh my goodness.
And they took him back there, and Alex made him. And I'd shown him a few times in the pleasure
Mhm.
because this horse was so versatile.
That's amazing.
For a King Fritz, too. I mean, they're
Yes.
known to be cow horses.
Cow horses. Yep.
And Alex made it superior. So he had 3 superiors on him.
Wow.
So, and then they stood him at the Haythorn Ranch.
Uh-huh.
And then, so a lot of the Haythorn horses have
Had
Stickle
that.
Fritz in
Yep.
his background.
That is way cool.
Another great King Fritz stud named Ready Checks I trained,
Mhm.
that I was reserve champion here at the World Show in the reining on. I don't know. I've had a few. I've
You
had some
have.
studs I can't even remember their names. They were all pretty good. So pretty nice.
Well, I've got a few on my list, and I don't know no, this is a mare. Montana Suzanne?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So Montana Susanna, this lady drives into the ranch one day. I had a lot of that happen to
Yeah.
me along the way, and she was very nice. And she said, "I have 2 horses, and one's supposed to be really good, and the other one's this and that." And I said, "Well, let me look at it. Bring them over." So she did, and the one that she liked the best, I moved her around in the stall, and she moved around like a little tractor trailer out there, just plop, 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 plop.
Oh, dear.
Montana Susanna, I stepped in front of her and she'd duck and swoop her head down through the ground and then stand there and shake and look at me. I said,
Wow.
"I'll take that.
That's the one.
I'll take that one." So I started her up, trained her up, and then I won the world on her here in the cutting, in the junior cutting, I think.
Mhm.
So, and she was a pretty neat horse. I mean, I was just really beginning my cutting career.
Mhm.
Like the first one I won here with, I won on a horse named Santasy.
Yeah.
Frank Merrill owned him.
Yes.
And I'll tell you a story about that. That's a good one. So I end up second.
Mhm.
I thought I should have won, but Pat Patterson won it. The
Ah.
great,
Yes.
Hall of Famer Pat
Yes.
Patterson wins it. And he hadn't thought about it, but he had given his horse some Banamine. He didn't pass the vet, so I moved up to first.
No way.
That was my first win in the cutting here. Not my first win, but my first cutting win.
Wow. That is amazing.
So, I showed at the second World Show. 75 in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yes.
And I showed a horse named Dondy's Fame and was second in the trail. And I showed Sherazan and was second in the working cow horse behind a great cow horse Hall of Famer named Chocho Plaudit.
Okay.
The next year was here. And I decided, well, I'm going to go back and give her another shot. I trained a real good Western riding mare named Mistable that was by Bull Parker that Jim Paul made famous, and out of a mare that I'd trained originally, a little Poco Del mare. And I won the Western riding on her here, Mistable.
That's cool.
And then I showed Expensive Hobby here for the first time, and I won the cow horse on him. And I think I set a record that year for his score because he was just an amazing animal.
He was.
So here's a good story for you. So we go back to the Ricky Bonanza deal,
yes,
right?
Sir.
So Bill Edmondson showed my horse, and he showed a mare named Miss 2x4. And he was reserve champion with that mare and won with my stud.
Okay.
Stud. Well, the other guy hauling was Stretch Bradley.
Oh my gosh.
Clark's dad.
Yes.
Okay. And he was showing a mare named Miss Jim 45.
Yes. Frank Merrill.
He was showing a stud named Blue Simone.
Okay.
Both owned by Frank Merrill.
I didn't know he had that stud. Okay.
So our stud beat his stud. Okay. So I just won the world on Mistable. Okay. And I take her back there. We're all kind of, we're feeling pretty good about ourselves. And Robin and Frank, who I didn't know, came walking down the aisleway.
Oh.
And he introduced himself. And I'm thinking, go away so we can all get together. And, and I said, wait a second. You're not the Frank Merrill that owned Blue Simone, are you? And Frank goes, yeah. And he goes, kind of shakes. He goes, wait a second. You're not the that owned Ricky Bonanza, are you? And I go, yeah. He said, the Dunning of Dunning and Lastly. He said, yeah. He said, you cost me a lot of money. I said, yeah, but we won, you little son of a gun. Anyway, he bought Mr. Bull for a girl then, and we became best friends shortly after that.
Oh my gosh.
It's always a long story about stuff.
That is amazing. The quarter horse world, yes, it is. It's a lot of connections and a lot of, you look at Bob Cale and Debbie Whalen Cale and Parkinson's and the Dunnings. And it's just all woven together.
You know where I first saw Debbie Whalen? She showed Margate.
Okay.
So she bought Margate from Clark Bradley and showed him in Ohio the first time I went back there and showed in the Raynham fraternity myself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she won. She was good.
Yeah. Yeah. Just the history of these families and the contributions they've made and the horses they've had. Miss Jim 45 and
what a great mare.
An amazing
mare. I have
a
picture of the gal that bought Miss Jim 45 from Frank holding her and a picture of Becky holding Ricky Bonanza, and they're facing each other like this. And I'll show it to you someday.
That is cool.
I want to tell you a quick one about Greg Whalen.
Yes.
So Greg, I have a great respect for that man, and he was the king when it came to the West Coast halter horses and stuff. And I had some good halter horses. Okay. I had a horse named Barney Berry that ended up winning champions at the Sun Circuit and the halter and stuff. And I had some great, I just had some good, anyway, I was showing halter horses, and we were at the West Coast Circuit with Pomona in those days.
Yep.
And Greg comes up to me. I'd won grand with one of my horses, and he comes up to me and goes, hey, and I'd noticed he'd been watching me show, ride. He comes in, he says, Al, you got a lot of talent. I'll never forget this, because you know how you have those moments that touch you?
Oh, yeah.
He says, I'm going to tell you something. The halter deal's going to change. He said, and it's going to go up and down, and you have other things that you're really good at. And I've watched you a lot. He said, you need to consider that.
Wow.
And he turned around and walked away. And I thought, wait a second, is he doing that because he
He's
doesn't
scared of
want
me?
me to beat him or what? And I got to thinking, no, that's not why. I mean, he's
He
telling
was
me
being
the
a
truth.
mentor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's being a mentor to me, and he
Yeah.
always has been. And so I quit showing halter horses after that.
Wow.
And went straight performance horses.
Mhm.
And, I started out and I had a ton of youth kids.
Mhm.
I had like the Keycaffers all rode with
Oh,
me,
yes.
and I had a fabulous youth riders, and several of them won the youth world and
Mhm.
stuff like that. And the ranning, the showmanship, I had a few winning the horsemanship and
That's
things like
awesome.
that too. So when I quit the halter horses, I always liked the reiners. So I
Mhm.
did the reiners for a long time, and then I get bored really easy, So I showed a lot of pleasure horses and trail horses and all that kind of stuff too. But when I got into the cow horses, I started licking my chops. Then
Yeah.
I'd found something that was pretty hard to get bored at.
Yeah.
And then,
It's pretty exciting.
and then along the way, when Don Dodge moved into my place and I started cutting, I thought, man, every day it's something's different with
Yes.
those. You know what I
Yes.
mean? I don't
Yes.
care how many times you ride them. You cut a different cow, and I didn't cut very good today, so cows weren't very good. So, but I just thought that's something I want to finish my
Mhm.
career at, and
Mhm.
so anyway,
That
that's what I do.
that is cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Expensive Hobby.
Hmm.
Tell me that story. How you got him.
So a lot of people don't know Mel Lawson, but Mel Lawson, he designed the Lawson bronze
Mhm.
that the reiners get, when they win big. So
He did the big dogwood bronze that's in the museum.
did the dogwood bronze.
Mhm.
This guy is
Amazing.
this guy is an amazing human. Okay,
Mhm.
first of all, he
Yeah,
trained.
not just an artist. He is a horseman.
He trained Triple's Image.
Yes.
He trained some of the best horses. He trained Hobby Knob.
Mhm.
I don't know. I can't even go through them all, but everything he touched kind of turned to gold.
Mhm.
So I'm at Del Mar and I see him showing this buckskin horse, and this horse misses a lead, and then he kind of gets away from him a little bit, but he could stop. And I thought, that's a really nice horse. I put it in the back of my brain. I had horses for a guy named Buddy Stewart
Mhm.
and his daughter Georgiana,
Mhm.
and both of them were pretty good ones. Was Penny's Win, and I don't remember the other one, Big Sorrel Pleasure Horse that was kind of old fashioned, clunky, I'd call it. So Buddy comes to me and goes, I think about time to buy Georgiana a new horse. And I went, I saw a buckskin
I have
horse
one
we
just
should go
in
look
mind.
at. And he lived in Yuma.
Okay.
And so I drove to Yuma, and then we drove over to Mel's in Southern California, and we looked at Expensive Hobby, and, I had that deal. I said, that looks like the kind of horse I'd like to have. So we bought him, and I bring him home and I start working him, and he trips all the time. So I looked at his knees, and I thought, we vetted him over there, but his knees never got x-rayed. So he had cracks in both knees.
Oh my gosh.
So I called the owner, was Gary Finnerty in those days. And I said, Gary,
We got a problem.
We got a problem here. He goes, well, I already spent the money. You ain't getting it back. I said, okay. So I called Buddy Stewart, told him the scoop, and he said, hey, just don't tell Georgiana. Let's take some time with that horse. And
Not freak
so
her
I
out.
did.
Yeah.
I took some time with him, did all kinds of therapy on his knees and stuff like that. I'm sure glad they didn't take him back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I showed him 32 times in the Hackamore and 129 first. And those were some tough classes.
That's amazing.
But I also showed him in the Hackamore Pleasure.
Mhm.
I showed him in the Western Riding. I did all kinds of stuff.
He did it all.
Yeah. I started cow horsing him along the way with Don Dodge's help, matter of fact. And anyway, I won the world 4 times on him. I think twice in the cow horse here at the World Show, once in the reining, and then I won the NRHA Open reining on him at the Congress, and then made him a superior cow horse, reining horse, and cutting horse. So
no wonder he's in the Hall of Fame.
he just was an unbelievable horse. I mean, he said all kinds. And what was crazy is that everything I did with him, the stock horses, where you had to run and stop and turn real quick and all that, it was different in those days, And then when I showed him in the reining, I had to slow things down a little bit and change it a little bit to that.
And switching gears.
He adapted, and then to go cut and where you leave your hand down. and he was such a great cow horse, and I roped on him. I did all kinds of stuff. That was just a phenomenal. Did you ever see the film that I did with Marvin Beeman called Survival of the Fittest?
No, but I
That
know
was
of
just
it.
one heck of a film.
Well, now I'm going to have to go
In
find
the old
it.
days, they had the camera out there, and it would sound like a turbine. They'd go, woo, woo, and it'd shoot. I remember they told me it shot 500 frames per second.
Mm-hmm.
And they had me run Expensive Hobby down the arena and say, whoa. And they had that slow motion. And and then Marvin Beeman would talk about his muscling and everything he's
and
doing.
Conformation.
And why your horse has to be this and that sound. And for survival of the fittest.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
That was, and then in that film, Expensive Hobby, I run and turn a cow down the fence, and it's like he goes deeper and deeper. And you think he's deep, he goes deeper and deeper. And finally he takes the cow and turns it.
Wow.
Pretty spectacular.
Well, now I'm going to have to go watch that.
Yeah.
What was his personality like?
He was my boy, you know, so.
Yeah.
He was always a little goosey,
Mm-hmm.
spooky. So I had to make sure when I showed him places like this, I had to come here and make sure I had a couple days to kind of
let him get
and
used
I never
to the
worked
surroundings.
him. I just rode him.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you ever buzzed him up and worked him a little bit, you might not get him showed.
Get him back.
I mean, he was that goosey and feely. So
wow.
Yeah, he was like that, but he was good. So he was so good, and I knew how great he was. He had the corner stall next to my office.
Oh my goodness!
And my next good one, I always put next to him. And I have a really feeling about that. It's kind of crazy, but I have a feeling that horses communicate in some way. I mean, horses that crib next to another crib, where that horse begins to crib. So why don't the good traits also go?
Yes,
that's how I put it.
They share it. Yeah,
I always felt that way. It's kind of, maybe I'm a little loony, but I felt it had something to do with something.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And horses become barn buddies, and they don't like being away from each other. So there's some connection there somehow.
Expensive Hobby never was barn sour, never was hooked to another horse, but I think he mentored those horses in some way next to him. I really do.
That's amazing.
It worked.
It worked.
Let's put it that way.
Let's just leave it there.
Let's leave it there. It worked. Okay. Yeah.
So who have I left out of any of the stars in your career?
Golly, I had some really good cutting horses along the way too, besides that. And Ready Checks was one of the best reiners I ever had. And so I don't know. So in the cutting, I had a horse a few years ago named Zach and Blue that I won NCHA World on in the novice, and he was just a phenomenal horse. I mean, we were like this, he was another one of those that he's part of you, so he'd run and stop as hard as one, and he'd fit today's. I mean, I won the world on him in 2011, and I could win the world on him again now. I mean, he's that big stopper, stylish enough. You couldn't hardly catch him in the stall. I'm going to tell you, I got a thing about this, and Dr. Miller and I were friends, and he did all the bonding with your horse stuff and all that, know, and stuff. And I'm sorry, I don't dig it, you know, because I think I'm human and they're horse, and they're not like my pet.
No,
I mean, there's supposed to be some kind of a little area between me and them, and I'm supposed to kind of guide their ways and things like that.
Some respect.
They're not supposed to get in my pocket all the time and rub on me. And
right.
So Zach and Blue was one of those. There was only a couple of us that could catch him in a 12x12 stall. No, he was just that.
Oh,
he just like this. I mean, he's had that feeling.
Wow.
I'll tell you a good one. So back when I was going along in the cutting pretty good, I went to see Freckles Playboy.
Oh, yeah.
And anyway, I said, you got any, good colts by him? And they said, yeah, I got some out here in the pasture here. So I said, so they had this pen in the corner of the pasture, so they brought him in and hemmed him up. And there was one horse that was just like, every time you moved, that sucker did go, woof, just jumped. Wow. And I said, think we can get a hold of him? Yeah, he goes, yeah, good luck, getting a hold of him. Yearling. So anyway, we dinked around, and I ended up buying that horse, and his name was Freckles and Bells.
Okay.
And Freckles and Bells that was the time I had a horse flip over on me and wreck my back. They removed 2 discs, and I couldn't ride it that good. But that was still one of the best horses I ever rode. Because if I said, gave him some response, a cue to do something. He didn't mess around. He did it.
He did it.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was no lag.
Think, do I have to? That kind of stuff. He just said, bam.
Wow.
He was so quick and could stop so hard. Sorry I did, but that's why I get hooked into those horses that have that little extra spirit, I guess you'd say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The response.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, did you ever sell Kenny Rogers a horse?
No. But I've had, it's been crazy. I've had such a cool career because like Buck Owens came to the ranch, and I've had many movie stars and sports people have been to the ranch, and it's pretty cool. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah,
really cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I try to get around.
Well, why not?
Why not?
So
you only go around once.
If there was one horse, living or dead, that you could go back and ride again, who would it be?
God, that is totally.
I think I know the answer, but I'm not 100% sure.
I don't know. That is so difficult because, I love Pink Pony so much. I loved her.
That's where my mind went.
But Expensive Hobby, he made me world known. He was like, I had a busload of daggum Japanese come in with their cameras around the neck just to take pictures of Expensive Hobby one time. Yeah. So, and that horse just. When Pat Close wrote my first reining book with Western Horsemen with him, wouldn't have happened, I don't think, without Expensive Hobby. So, yeah, he's pretty special to me. Probably he'd be the one.
Yeah.
But there'd be like 20 of them if I could have those horses again.
You could have that many opportunities.
I'm 75 years old, so I know that I'm not going to have a whole bunch of great horses anymore. I'd like to have one more.
How's that?
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
This is like a shot in the arm, baby. You just wish that, every day you go out there, that's why riding colts is a pretty neat deal when you ride a young horse, because you think that one's got it,
So when you said that you and Expensive Hobby, and then there were a couple of others you've talked about that were like, okay, that's my horse. That's my guy. What was it that made you realize, what made that click? What was that feeling like?
I think you can see it in their eye.
Yeah.
I think that's the deal with those great horses. I think you can see it in them. And then there's a way they move, there's a way that they bend their body better than other horses because they can,
Yes. Yes.
I just could feel it in them, I could feel it in them, and I could see it that they had the heart and all that. I always said, you can measure a horse's conformation and their bloodlines, but you can't ever measure the heart and the try.
Nope.
When they have that trainability, I can tell you those ones that are a little more difficult in the beginning are a lot easier at the end usually. So that's how I always put it. I always put it that I wanted a horse that looked like they had that little sparkle in her eye. I got a granddaughter that's got that little sparkle in her eye too, and I know she's going to end up being something big.
Something big.
Yeah, she's going to do something big. Yeah.
So one of the things we ask everybody that we interview for the podcast, because of course it's called Good Horses, how would you define a good horse?
Well, I like a pretty horse, but.
And what is it you say?
Well,
life is too short.
Life's too short to ride an ugly horse. There's no buts about that. So, what's interesting, when you talk about a good horse, I think a good horse to me is an athlete.
Yeah.
I remember the days when I'd win the halter and then I could win the reining and win the cow horse on the same horse.
Horse.
And win the pleasure, maybe all those classes on the same horse, And those were the days when I thought that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And, so those are the good horses. The good horses are the horses that have heart and try. Yeah. They're athletic enough, and they're pretty. I think that's it. And it's interesting because an old horse trader once, I was real good friends with this guy. We used to go to the sales together, like the Farmers and Ranchers auction in Clovis.
Yes.
And he said, the first thing someone looks at is the head.
Yeah.
So make sure they got a good look in their eye, even if they don't have a good looking head. He said, and those real pretty headed horses, those real little Arab dish facing, never buy one of those because they don't have enough room for brains. He told me stuff like that. So, I always
But it's a
like
good
that.
point.
Yeah. And, they got to have a cowlick right in the middle, too. If the cowlick's offside,
Absolutely.
the cowlick, or they have a cowlick down their neck. Those are all things that a horse trader told me back in those days.
Well, they knew something.
I cherish those old things that I
Absolutely.
learned. I've got lots of little, things that I think about. I got things like don't put your hat on the bed.
Nope.
Don't
Never.
wear a yellow shirt.
Nope.
Always put your left boot on first. So I got some
Yep.
things like that. And maybe they're not like things that anybody else has, but I've always enjoyed when someone told me about something like that. Why?
Yeah.
So I've stuck with them. Somebody
Absolutely.
has to, right?
Absolutely.
Somebody has.
And you have to share that,
Yeah.
And you're in that position now. You're a legend in our industry.
About that, but I'm still here. Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's
Thank you.
fantastic.
Thank you.
It's easy when I know somebody well enough too. And again, I mean, Expensive Hobby he always just gave me goosebumps. So
He was pretty special. When I was at the Hall of Fame the other day to see Robin Merrill and my good friend Stan and Nancy get put in, and those two great horses got put in there, and I got to go by and see Expensive Hobby's little thing he had for him there, and some of the pictures I go, those aren't the best pictures of them, but it's such an honor to have a horse in the Hall of Fame like that.
Yep.
So yeah, pretty cool.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
And thank you for the work you do for the Journal and
love
supporting
doing that.
us as well. We love it too. The stories are amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thanks for listening to Good Horses, Stories of the American Quarter Horse. Because behind every great rider, breeder, or trainer, there's always a good horse. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story.